We have Cindy Wendle queued up to give us a presentation on our PPE distribution. Cindy, take it away.
Hello, commissioners and everyone. Thank you. Appreciate your guys' time letting Tony and I give you an update on our PPE distribution that the county has invested in for our small businesses and nonprofits and for our schools. So we're going to run you through just an update on where we're at currently in the program. Next slide, please. So we have done on the small business side, and Tony will follow up my presentation with school information, but on the small business and nonprofit side, we have done so far 3 different rounds of distribution. And we have touched and been able to supply over 5,700 recipients, distributed over 1.5 million in individual products. I think the third bullet point is something that I credit Tony with bringing to the table and doing some research on this, but your investment of a little over $1.5 million to this community enabled the business and nonprofit community to save over $3 million actually in costs that they would have incurred to supply themselves with this PPE to keep the community safe and their employees safe. So that is a massive return on investment, and also something that they didn't have to go to the trouble of doing time-wise and invest their dollars in. One thing that I'm very proud of, and I want to give a shout out to Ahana, they're not here today, but our partnership with them and other organizations, United Way, but especially Ahana, it enabled us to reach some of our the barriers, the businesses and nonprofits that may have more barriers to access the PPE, such as transportation and language and cultural barriers. And they came and picked up nearly 100 boxes, actually more than once at our different sites, gave us UBI numbers, did everything right. But they went to all the work on their own to distribute that PPE to those businesses and nonprofits. So I think that partnership did a great amount of good for our community. In December alone, we switched, and I want to credit the fairground staff for this idea, and Tony. They said, hey, let's prepackage some boxes and enable us to limit the number of people that are gathered together for this effort, which keeps everybody safe. But it also enabled us to get the product out very quickly. We only had 2 days of distribution, 6 hours a day, and they were able to serve over 1,300 businesses and nonprofits. And very quickly, we never had a car wait more than 5 minutes to get any of the product, and it was pretty outstanding. The need still does exist. It's slowly still dripping in. I've been doing some personal deliveries, and they've been going to the fairground staff a little bit here and there. So there's still some need out there in the business community and the nonprofit. Next slide. And here's just an inventory review of basically the products that we ordered, where we are now with the % of distribution. To highlight to you, nitrile gloves, this is where we ordered for the hospitality industry, and those have yet to come in. So we have not distributed any of those yet. You'll notice that we're pretty close to being done with adult cloth masks, but we still have at least 1 more round and maybe more of hand sanitizer and cleaner, and youth disposable and adult disposable masks. And the highlighted area is that total amount of what the market cost would have been for the PPE had somebody had to go on the open market and purchase all of this, which was nearly $3 million. Next slide. And so for the next phase for us and what we're looking at is sometime in February, we will be setting up a registration to distribute those 23,300 plus boxes of gloves. And we will open a registration to the entire community, the small business community of 249 or fewer employees, plus all nonprofits. But the hospitality industry will be receiving the gloves on top of these standardized boxes of PPE product. And then for future, this is something too to potentially answer any of your questions or hear your thoughts, how we move forward. We have maximized the allotted CARES budget for PPE. The hospitality industry they need those gloves, and we're getting those to them. Other than that, nothing specific I'm hearing from the community at large about anything but gloves that's new or that we need to be aware of as far as a need. Again, no additional, I'm not recommending any additional orders this time or looking for the general fund to do anything in that capacity. After we do the distribution in February, we are still going to have some leftover masks and cleaner. We could carry those over and distribute again in the spring as we move into more of a phase 2 era. But after February, we are going to need some general fund assistance for that if we do venture into that. Or we could look at distributing those products to potential schools, daycares, and in general, the business community as we find partners and try and get rid of the product now versus hold it over. That is I think everything on the small business side. And then I'll have Tony now go through our school PPE program, I think is our next slide.
Thank you, Cindy. All right, so for school PPE, as Cindy mentioned before, the items that we're still missing, nitrile gloves, disinfectant wipes, and adult and youth cloth masks. So luckily for us, the big need for schools was the N95s for the nurses and people in really close contact with kids and other teachers. And then the second most important would be the KN95, and that's for the same kind of thing, just not as critical, I guess. Not really sure the difference between the KN and the N95, but we got out 500,000 KN95s to 37 school districts. We got about 150,000 in to the school districts. So the points that I really wanted to stress, we got 37 schools have been served so far, and I got the $5 million savings. That was just the cost avoidance that we provided the schools. If they were to buy all of their PPE at market cost right now to try to, get ready for 2021, they'd be at a little over $5 million for that effort. And we did that with just a little over $2 million in our CARES Act allocation. So I have a tentative date for the gloves, wipes, cloth masks of 2/5. I email this guy every day. We have a phone conversation every day. So I'm staying on top of it. Just can't tell you exactly where it's at. It's in transit. We have 3 containers left to be delivered. And then the last item for the school PPE is just a stat for the fairgrounds team and the hard work they've done. They've delivered 1.4 million items in just the first 3 weeks of this year. So our containers, most of it did not show up until the beginning of January, and these guys have worked tirelessly to get this done in the first 3.5 weeks of the year. So a big shout out to them. All right, I'll move on to the next slide. And the next one for me is the internal PPE. So again, you can see highlighted nitrile gloves, disinfectant wipes, and cloth. Big points here. We've served 30 different departments, $250,000 savings if you were to buy at market price now versus what we bought it for our internal employees here. Same 2/5 delivery date, hopefully for the rest of the items. We were able to rush in some Tyvek style suits for detention services when they were having some issues late last month, early this month, and then the N95s as well for really high risk population. So all good with that one. All right, so conclusion, both Cindy's and my slides I kind of put together in this final slide, some very high level stats for you guys. So we have 7.5 million products distributed since June of 2020. This was done with really only 2 dedicated county FTEs, and it wouldn't be without the help of GSI, United Way, members of my department, Cindy, and the fairgrounds. There's no way we could have done this without all those people. When you add up everything at market value right now, we've given about $8 million in market value to our community, which is really great. A lot of the feedback that Cindy and I got, Cindy, you can probably echo this too, is without these events that you guys supported, a lot of our small businesses are kind of on the edge of staying afloat or not, and this really helped them keep going, keep pushing, and get through some of the harder months of the lockdown.
Yeah, I think it's, as we saw the year go on, we saw more interest, outbound interest to us about PPE. And I think it had a lot to do with how expensive it was getting for the businesses. And it was something that they were just getting less and less able to source and afford.
Yep, and I just did some quick math, and if a small business on average would get about $1,600 in PPE if they came to all 3 events. That's on the average. We have the larger companies that would get closer to probably $2,500 in PPE. As far as internal stock for our county employees here, I think we have enough stock for everybody until June, probably at this current rate, assuming that we don't have to burn through a bunch with any unforeseen hiccups here in the next 6 months. And yeah, most of all, just thank you guys for your support. We couldn't have done this without your support, the funding that you granted us. So that's all I have for you.
That is fantastic. I mean, those savings are incredible. I mean, that to our businesses and our local school districts. I mean, at a time like this, that's a lot of money at any time, but at a time like this, I mean, that's worth so much more. I mean, it's fantastic. Thank you both so much for what you've done.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you guys, great job. And really, you know, paying attention to getting a purchase so we have these great rates and really being able to save and I think so much we really needed, you know, being thoughtful that way. I mean, you guys just did a great job. So thank you very much. And I've heard from several businesses that got it, you know, that, you know, it was really helpful to them. A lot of them, you know, were just like little, you know, nail salons, you know, it was amazing, all the people that are really helped. And then I know with the school districts, you know, I've heard nothing but great things and appreciation for that. So, so thank you.
You guys it's Tony and the fairground team deserve all the credit. Tony's worked so hard and tirelessly on this purchasing side, and you're hearing anything, you know, even nationally about how to source the stuff. He works magic. And the fairground team, like to your point, Mary, I mean, how quickly they're getting product out to the school districts. They're answering emails, they're keeping track of inventory. Your fairground staff has been insanely awesome.
And to Cindy's credit too, it's a team effort in this. We can get everything together, but what we've seen in other government efforts, especially for PPE, is that all the PPE is in place, but we don't have the marketing, the messaging isn't behind it. There isn't a whole lot of demand for it. And what Cindy and GSI and everybody has done to actually attract that demand and organize the flow of the demand is pretty special. So that was another big part of the success of this.